The first thing I heard that morning wasn't kindness. It wasn't even goodbye. It was my daughter-in-law's voice at the bottom of the stairs, flat as a slammed door. Stop pretending and be useful for once. That was 1 week after my knee replacement. 1 week after the doctor told me I needed help walking, going to the bathroom, even getting to bed. 1 week into feeling like a stranger in my own body. I was still clutching the wall when I heard the suitcases bump across the floor. A laugh too bright for a house with 4 kids in it. A car door opening. Then silence. Not one person asked if I had taken my pain meds. Not one person asked if I could even climb the stairs. They left me there, aching, raw, and humiliated. And they left their 4 kids with me. 4 kids I love more than my own knees, but 4 kids I could barely chase if one of them bolted toward the street. I remember standing in that hallway and thinking, this isn't a mistake. This is who they are. Hey family, before I take you down this road, welcome back to Her Real Stories. If you're new here, I'm glad you found us. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. Please like this video, subscribe, hit the bell, and drop a comment when something hits home, because what I'm about to tell you is not easy, but it's unforgettable. My name is Clara, and I'm 64 years old. Last month, I had total knee replacement surgery. The doctors said it would take weeks to heal, maybe months to feel normal again. I knew it would be hard. What I didn't know was that my son Grant and his wife Maribel saw my recovery time as the perfect opportunity to escape their responsibilities and dump them all on me. The morning it all started, I was gripping the hallway wall trying to make it to the bathroom. Each step felt like knives shooting through my leg. The pain pills made me dizzy, but without them, I couldn't move at all. I was halfway down the hall when I heard voices in the kitchen. Just leave her the list, Maribel was saying. She'll figure it out. What if she can't handle all 4 kids? That was Grant's voice. Then maybe she'll finally understand what real work feels like. I froze. What were they talking about? What list? I pressed myself against the wall and listened harder. The flight leaves at 2 p.m., Grant said. 7 days in the Caribbean. God knows we've earned it after dealing with her for the past week. My heart started pounding. They were leaving? Without telling me? I managed to shuffle closer to the kitchen doorway, staying hidden behind the wall. That's when I saw them. Grant was stuffing clothes into a suitcase, while Maribel printed something from her phone. Here's the schedule, she said, waving papers in the air. Emma has soccer practice Tuesday and Thursday. Jake needs to be at violin lessons Wednesday. The baby needs her medicine twice a day, and don't forget Tommy has that school project due Friday. She raised me, Grant said, not looking up from his packing. She can handle 4 kids for a week. With a brand new knee? Maribel laughed. This should be interesting. That laugh. Cold as ice. I'd heard it before, usually right before she said something cruel about my cooking or my clothes or the way I talked to the grandchildren. I tried to back away, but my knee buckled. I grabbed the wall to stop myself from falling, and the motion made a picture frame rattle. Both of them looked up. Mom, Grant called out. That you? I had 2 choices. Hide like a coward or face whatever this was. I chose to face it. I walked into that kitchen, each step agony, and looked at my son. Really looked at him. When had his eyes gotten so cold? When had his mouth twisted into that permanent frown whenever he saw me? What's going on? I asked, though I already knew. Grant and Maribel exchanged a look. She nodded at him like she was giving him permission to speak. We're taking a little vacation, he said, not meeting my eyes. You're going to watch the kids. Vacation? I just had surgery. I can barely walk. Maribel snorted. Oh, please. You've been milking that knee thing for a week. My grandmother had the same surgery and was back to normal in 3 days. The doctor said 6 to 8 weeks for full recovery. Doctors say a lot of things, Grant said, finally looking at me. Doesn't mean they're all true. Besides, you raised kids before. You raised me. That was 30 years ago. I was young and healthy. You're not that old, Maribel said, but her tone suggested she thought I was ancient. And the kids practically take care of themselves anyway. I looked around the kitchen. Toys everywhere. Dirty dishes in the sink. A baby carrier on the counter next to a stack of dirty bottles. These kids definitely did not take care of themselves. Where are you going? I asked. Caribbean cruise, Grant said, and for the first time that morning he smiled. 7 days. All inclusive. We booked it last month. Last month? You knew you were leaving and you didn't tell me. We're telling you now, Maribel said. Here's the list of everything you need to know. She handed me 3 pages of tiny print. School schedules, meal preferences, medicine times, emergency contacts. My hands shook as I read it. Not from the pain medication, but from pure shock. I can't do this, I said quietly. I physically cannot do this. I can barely take care of myself right now. Then maybe you should try harder, Maribel said. We've been taking care of you for a week. Bringing you food, helping you to the bathroom, listening to you complain about every little ache and pain. It's time you gave something back. Gave something back. Like I hadn't given them the down payment for this house 3 years ago. Like I hadn't been babysitting their kids for free every weekend for the past 5 years. Like I hadn't spent my entire life savings making sure Grant had everything he needed. What about Mrs. Peterson next door? I asked desperately. She helps with the kids sometimes. She's visiting her sister, Grant said. Look, Mom, we already paid for this cruise. The money's gone. We can't get it back. What money? You two are both doctors. You make plenty of money. Another one of those looks between them. This time, Maribel answered. We had some unexpected expenses. The cruise was necessary for our mental health. Necessary for their mental health. While I was supposed to watch 4 children with a knee held together by metal and stitches. Please, I said, hating how my voice sounded. Weak. Begging. I'm asking you not to do this. I'm not ready. I need more time to heal. Grant's face hardened. Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully. We are leaving today. In 3 hours. You can either help us out like family should, or you can make this difficult for everyone. How am I making this difficult? I'm in pain. I'm scared. I'm asking for help. You're being dramatic, Maribel said. You always do this. Every time we need something from you, suddenly you're too sick or too tired or too whatever. It's getting old. Too sick. I'd had major surgery a week ago. I was supposed to be resting, doing physical therapy, taking things slow. Instead, they wanted me to chase around a 2-year-old and drive teenagers to activities. What if something happens? I asked. What if I fall? What if one of the kids gets hurt and I can't help them? Nothing's going to happen, Grant said, but he was already looking at his watch. We need to finish packing. What if I say no? The room went dead quiet. Even the kids, who had been playing in the living room, seemed to sense something was wrong. Their voices got softer, more careful. Grant set down his suitcase and walked over to me. Up close, I could see he needed a shave. His breath smelled like coffee and something else. Something sharp and angry. You won't say no, he said quietly. Because you love those kids. And because you owe us. I owe you the down payment on this house. The money for Maribel's student loans. All those times you called crying about being lonely, and we dropped everything to spend time with you. Yeah, Mom. You owe us. I felt like he'd slapped me. Every dollar I'd given them, I'd given out of love. Every time I'd called, it was because I missed them. Because after your father died, they were all I had left. I never asked you to pay me back, I whispered. And now you don't have to. Watch the kids. 1 week. That's all we're asking. But it wasn't all they were asking. I could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices. This wasn't just about watching the kids. This was about putting me in my place. Showing me that no matter what I'd done for them in the past, right now I was just a burden they had to manage. Maribel's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. "We need to leave for the airport in an hour," she said. "Grant, finish packing. I'll get the kids ready." "Ready for what?" I asked. "We're dropping them at daycare on our way to the airport," she said. "You can pick them up at 5. "Pick them up? I can't drive. My right knee is the one that had surgery." "Take an Uber," Grant said, like it was obvious. "Or ask someone for a ride." An Uber. To pick up 4 children. One of them a baby who needed a car seat. I watched them move around the kitchen, grabbing things, making lists, checking their phones. They moved like people who'd been planning this for weeks. Which I realized they had been. They'd known all along they were going to dump their kids on me and disappear. "What about groceries?" I asked. "There's no food in the house for 4 kids for a week." "There's cereal," Maribel said. "And sandwich stuff. They'll be fine." I opened the refrigerator. A half-gallon of milk that expired yesterday. Some leftover Chinese food. A bag of baby carrots that had gone soft. 3 juice boxes and a container of yogurt. This isn't enough food for a week. "Order pizza," Grant said. "Get groceries delivered. Figure it out." Figure it out. Like I was supposed to magically become capable of caring for 4 children when I couldn't even make myself a cup of coffee without help. The next hour was a blur. Maribel threw clothes into bags for the kids. Grant printed boarding passes and checked his phone constantly. The children sensed something was happening, but didn't understand what. Emma, who was 8, kept asking where Mommy and Daddy were going. Jake, who was 10, sat at the kitchen table working on homework like nothing was wrong. Tommy, the 6-year-old, cried because he couldn't find his favorite stuffed animal. And little Lucy, the baby, fussed in her high chair, throwing pieces of banana on the floor. I tried to help, but every movement sent fire through my knee. I had to sit down every few minutes to catch my breath. The pain medication made my head fuzzy, but without it, I couldn't think at all. "Okay, kids, time to go," Maribel announced, clapping her hands like she was directing a play. "Where are we going?" Emma asked. "Daycare for today. Grandma's going to pick you up later." "Why can't Grandma come with us now?" Grant and Maribel looked at each other. I could see them trying to come up with an excuse that wouldn't make them sound like the terrible people they were being. "Grandma needs to rest her knee," Grant finally said. "She'll see you later." They loaded the kids into the car. I watched from the window as they buckled car seats and handed out tablets to keep everyone quiet. Grant came back inside to grab their suitcases. "The numbers for the daycare are on the refrigerator," he said, not looking at me. "Pick them up by 5:30, or they charge extra." "What if I can't? What if something happens to me?" "Nothing's going to happen. You're being paranoid." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "Mom." "What?" "Thanks for doing this. I know it's not easy, but we really need this break." "A break? From what? From their own children? When will you be back?" I asked. "Next Sunday." "Late." "Probably around 10 at night. 7 full days. 7 days of taking care of 4 children when I could barely take care of myself." "The house key is on the kitchen counter," he said. "And there's a spare in the fake rock by the front door." "I know. I helped you hide it there." He paused at the door. For a second, just a second, he looked like my little boy again. The one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The one who brought me flowers he'd picked from the neighbor's yard. "I love you, Mom," he said softly. "I love you too," I whispered back. And then he was gone. I stood at the window and watched their car disappear down the street. My son and daughter-in-law driving away to paradise while leaving me to handle responsibilities I wasn't ready for. The house felt different with them gone. Quieter, but not peaceful. More like the quiet before a storm. I walked slowly through the rooms, taking inventory. The living room looked like a toy store had exploded. The kitchen sink was full of dirty dishes. Upstairs, beds were unmade and clothes were scattered everywhere. In their bedroom, I found something that made my blood run cold. A piece of paper on the nightstand with numbers written on it. Big numbers. With dollar signs.
It was a credit card statement.
Past due. Way past due. I picked it up with shaking hands. The balance was over $40,000. The minimum payment, which was 3 months overdue, was $800. There were more papers under it. More statements. More past due notices. Medical bills, car payments, credit cards, store cards. They owed money to everyone. But they had money for a cruise. I sat down on their bed, my niece screaming in protest, and looked through every piece of paper. The picture that emerged made me sick. They were broke. Completely, totally broke. The house I'd helped them buy was 3 payments behind on the mortgage. Their cars were about to be repossessed. They had borrowed money from everyone they could think of. And at the bottom of the pile, I found something that stopped my heart. A bank statement. For an account with my name on it. I'd opened a joint account with Grant years ago, back when he was in medical school. It was supposed to be for emergencies. I'd forgotten about it after he graduated and got his job. According to the statement, they'd been taking money out of it for months. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there. But lately, the withdrawals had gotten bigger. Much bigger. The cruise they were on right now, paid for with my money. Money I hadn't given them permission to take. I sat there for a long time, holding those papers, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't just anger, though I was angry. It wasn't just hurt, though I was hurt. It was something deeper. Something final. They'd lied to me. Stolen from me. Left me to care for their children when I could barely care for myself. And they'd done it all while acting like I was the problem. Like I was the one being unreasonable.
My phone rang.
The daycare. Mrs. Dunsmore? This is Linda from Sunny Days Daycare. Just wanted to confirm you'll be picking up the Winters children by 5:30. I looked at the clock. 3:15. In 2 hours, I was supposed to somehow get to the daycare and collect 4 children. Drive them home safely. Feed them dinner. Help with homework. Give baths. Read stories. And do it all with a knee that felt like it was being torn apart with every step. Yes, I heard myself say, I'll be there.
Great.
And just so you know, little Lucy has been a bit fussy today. She might be getting a cold. A sick baby. On top of everything else. After I hung up, I sat in that bedroom for another 10 minutes just thinking. Really thinking, maybe for the first time since my surgery. What were my options? I could call someone for help. Maybe Mrs. Henderson from down the street, though she was older than me and had her own health problems. I could call my sister in Florida, but what could she do from 1,000 miles away? I could call the daycare back and tell them I couldn't pick up the children. But then what? They'd call child services. The kids would be scared and confused. It wasn't their fault their parents were selfish and cruel. Or I could do what Grant and Maribel expected. Suck it up.
Push through the pain.
Take care of their responsibilities while they sipped drinks on a beach somewhere. That's what the old Clara would have done. The Clara who always said yes, who always put everyone else first, who never made waves. But sitting there, holding evidence of their lies and theft, I realized something. The old Clara was gone. She died on the operating table a week ago, and someone new had taken her place. Someone who was tired of being used. Someone who was ready to fight back. Part of me wanted to collapse in bed and cry for days. But another part of me, the part they thought was gone forever, sat up straighter, and started planning. I reached for my phone and made a call that would change everything. Detective Morrison? This is Clara Densmore. We met at the hospital fundraiser last year. I have something I need to report. Detective Morrison remembered me. We talked for an hour at that fundraiser about his mother, who'd also had knee surgery. He'd been kind and funny, and I'd thought at the time that he seemed like someone you could trust in a crisis. Mrs. Densmore, good to hear from you.
Though you sound upset.
Is everything all right? No, I said, and it felt good to say it out loud. It's not all right at all. I told him everything. About the surgery, about Grant and Maribel leaving, about the children I was supposed to pick up in less than 2 hours. And then I told him about the bank statements, about the money they'd taken without my permission. That's theft, he said simply. Taking money from a joint account without the other person's knowledge or permission, especially when it's for personal use like a vacation. That's a felony. What can I do about it? Well, first thing is to get those bank records together. All of them.
Can you do that?
I think so. Second thing is, are you safe? Do you need immediate help? I thought about it. Was I safe? Physically, yes. The house was secure, I had food and medicine. But emotionally? Financially?
No.
I wasn't safe at all. I need help with the children, I admitted. I can't take care of 4 kids right now. But I don't want them to suffer because their parents are horrible. Let me make some calls, he said. I might have a solution. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Mrs. Densmore, I've got some help coming your way. Officer Janet Liu. She's great with kids, and she volunteers with child services. She's going to meet you at the daycare and help you get the children home safely. She'll stay as long as you need her to. I started crying. Not from pain, but from relief.
Someone was going to help me.
Someone was taking my situation seriously. There's more, Detective Morrison continued. I called the bank about your account. They're freezing it immediately so no more money can be taken out. And they're going to reverse the charges for the cruise, since you didn't authorize it. They can do that? Absolutely. This is fraud, Mrs. Densmore. Clear-cut fraud. Your son and daughter-in-law are going to have some explaining to do when they get back. By the time I got to the daycare, Officer Liu was already there, talking to the staff. She was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with kind eyes and a patient smile. Mrs. Densmore? She walked over to me as I got out of the Uber. I'm Janet. Detective Morrison filled me in on your situation. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm scared and angry, and my knee hurts like hell. She laughed. Fair enough. Those are all perfectly reasonable feelings. Let's get these kids home, and then we'll figure out the rest. The ride home was chaos. Lucy cried the whole way. Tommy asked a million questions about where his parents were and when they were coming back. Jake sat silent, staring out the window. Emma tried to help with the baby, but just made more noise. Officer Liu handled it all with amazing patience. She distracted the kids with silly songs, got Lucy to stop crying by making funny faces, and somehow managed to keep everyone calm. At the house, she helped me get everyone inside and settled. She changed Lucy's diaper while I tried to figure out what to feed everyone for dinner. She helped Tommy find his homework while I called for pizza. You're going to be okay, she told me as the kids ate. And Detective Morrison is working on getting justice for what they did to you. What do you think will happen to them? That depends on a lot of things. How much money they took, whether they've done this before, how cooperative they are when they find out they're in trouble. She paused. But between you and me, they're looking at serious charges. Theft from an elderly person is taken very seriously. After Officer Liu left, promising to check on me the next day, I sat in the living room watching the kids play. They were good kids. Not their fault their parents were criminals. Emma came over and climbed onto the couch next to me. Grandma, are you sad? She asked. A little bit, sweetheart. But I'm going to be okay. Is it because Mommy and Daddy went on vacation without us? I looked down at her, 8 years old, and already wise enough to see that something wasn't right. Partly, I said. But mostly I'm sad because they weren't honest with me about some things. Like what? How do you explain to a child that her parents are thieves? That they stole money from their own mother to pay for their vacation? Grown-up stuff, I said finally. But I want you to know that whatever happens, it's not your fault. You and your brothers and sister are wonderful kids, and I love you very much. She snuggled closer to me. I love you too, Grandma. And I'm sorry your knee hurts. That night, after I got all 4 kids bathed and into bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and a cup of tea. My knee was throbbing. I was exhausted, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I called my lawyer. Harold? It's Clara Dunsmore. I know it's late, but I need your help. Harold had handled my divorce 30 years ago and my husband's estate when he died. He knew my financial situation better than anyone. Clara, what's going on? You sound upset. I told him the whole story. About the surgery, about Grant and Maribel leaving, about the money they'd stolen, about the police investigation that was starting. How much are we talking about? He asked. I looked at the bank statements I'd spread out on the table. At least $25,000. Maybe more. Harold whistled low. That's grand theft. Felony level. Detective Morrison said the same thing. What do you want to do, Clara? I mean, this is your son we're talking about. My son stole from me, lied to me, and abandoned his children with someone who's barely recovered from surgery. What would you do if it was your son? I'd prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. Then that's what we're going to do. We talked for another hour, going over my options. Harold would file a civil suit to recover the money they'd stolen. He'd also help me change my will and remove Grant and Maribel as beneficiaries. And he'd make sure they couldn't access any more of my accounts or property. There's one more thing, I told him. The house they're living in? I co-signed on the mortgage. My name is still on the deed. Are they current on payments? I looked at the stack of past due notices. 3 months behind. Then you have options. You could force a sale to recover your down payment. Or, if you wanted to get really aggressive, you could foreclose. What would that mean? It would mean they'd lose the house. Everything in it. They'd have nowhere to live when they got back from their cruise. The idea should have horrified me, making my own son homeless. But all I felt was a cold satisfaction. Let's explore that option, I said. It didn't all happen overnight. Some things took days, others weeks. But once I made that first call, everything began to unravel faster than I expected. The next few days passed in a blur. Officer Lou checked on me every morning, helping with the kids and making sure I was managing okay. At first, I couldn't have managed without her and then Mrs. Patterson. They carried the weight until I was strong enough to carry it myself. Detective Morrison called with updates on the investigation. The bank reversed the cruise charges and froze the accounts so no more money could be taken. But the best call came on Thursday morning. Mrs. Dunsmore? This is Captain Rodriguez from the Paradise Dream cruise ship. We have passengers on board who are trying to use a credit card that's been reported as fraudulent. Can you confirm whether Grant and Maribel Winters have your permission to use your financial accounts? I almost laughed. They were stuck on a ship in the middle of the Caribbean, trying to use my stolen money, and the credit card company had flagged it as fraud. No, I said clearly. They do not have my permission. They stole that money from me. I see. Well, they'll be escorted off the ship at the next port and flown back to Miami. The authorities there will be waiting for them. How soon will that be? Tomorrow morning, ma'am. They'll be back in the United States by tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow. 3 days early. Their dream vacation was turning into a nightmare. That afternoon, while the kids were napping, I called Grant's phone. It went straight to voicemail. Grant, this is your mother. I know what you did. I know about the money you stole, about all the bills you've been hiding, about the lies you told me. When you get back, you're going to find some surprises waiting for you. The police want to talk to you. The bank has questions. And you no longer have a place to live. You have 24 hours to remove your belongings from the house before I change the locks. Don't bother trying to call me back. I have nothing more to say to you. I hung up, and for the first time in a week, I felt like myself again. Harold worked fast. By Friday afternoon, the foreclosure papers were filed. Harold knew the right judges to call, and by the next day, the restraining order papers were signed. The sheriff's department would serve them as soon as Grant and Maribel returned. They had 30 days to vacate, but Harold found a clause in the mortgage that allowed for immediate eviction in cases of fraud. They'll be out by this weekend, he told me. Maybe sooner if they can't fight the charges. Friday evening, Officer Lou came by for her daily check. The kids were getting used to her, and Lucy even smiled when she walked in. "Any word from your son?" she asked. "They should be landing in Miami tonight. Detective Morrison says they'll be arrested at the airport." "How do you feel about that?" It was a good question. How did I feel about my only child being arrested? 3 weeks ago, I would have been devastated. I would have called lawyers, paid bail, done everything I could to protect him.
Now?
I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "I feel like justice is finally being served," I said. Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of pounding on the front door. It was barely 6 a.m. I looked out the window and saw them. Grant and Maribel, looking terrible. Their skin was sunburned, their clothes wrinkled, their faces furious. I didn't open the door. "Mom," Grant shouted. "Open up. We know you're in there." The kids woke up from the noise. Emma came downstairs rubbing her eyes. "Is that Daddy?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart. But he's upset right now. Why don't you go back upstairs with the others?" The pounding continued. Now Maribel was shouting too. "Clara, you can't do this to us. We have children." I picked up my phone and called 911. "This is Clara Densmore at 4487 Maple Street. My son and daughter-in-law are trying to break into my house. They've been arrested for theft, and they're violating the restraining order by being here." The restraining order was Harold's idea. Filed yesterday afternoon, it prohibited Grant and Maribel from coming within 500 feet of me or contacting me in any way. The police arrived in less than 10 minutes. I watched from the upstairs window as 2 officers talked to Grant and Maribel on the front lawn. I could see Grant pointing at the house, his face red with anger. Maribel was crying, her designer Cruise clothes rumpled and stained. One of the officers came to the door. "Mrs. Densmore? I'm Officer Patel. We've informed your son and daughter-in-law about the restraining order. They're leaving now, but they wanted me to ask if they can collect some belongings from the house." "The house is in foreclosure," I said. "They have until next Friday to remove their things. But they can't enter while I'm here with the children." "Understood. We'll make sure they stay away." After the police left, I made breakfast for the kids and tried to act normal. But inside I was shaking. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. I'd done it. I'd stood up to them. I'd protected myself and the children. The phone rang around noon. "Detective Morrison." "Mrs. Densmore, I have some news. We've arrested your son and daughter-in-law on charges of grand theft, fraud, and child endangerment." "Child endangerment?" "Leaving 4 children, including an infant, with someone who's medically unable to care for them. It's a serious charge." "What happens now?" "They'll have a bail hearing on Monday. Given the amount of money involved and the flight risk, bail will probably be set pretty high. They might not be able to make it." "What about the children?" "Child Services is involved now. Since you've been caring for them successfully, and since it's clear you love them, they'd like to leave them with you temporarily. But we'll need to get you some help." Help came in the form of Mrs. Patterson, a retired teacher who worked part-time with Child Services. She moved into the guest room and helped with everything from driving the kids to school to making sure I took my physical therapy seriously. "You're stronger than you think," she told me one afternoon as we watched the kids play in the backyard. "Most people wouldn't have had the courage to do what you did." I didn't feel courageous. I felt desperate. Sometimes that's the same thing. The foreclosure moved quickly. Harold had found evidence that Grant and Maribel had been forging my signature on mortgage documents, taking out second loans without my knowledge, and using my credit to cover their debts. "It's worse than we thought," he told me over the phone. "They've been systematically stealing from you for over 2 years. The total amount is close to $75,000. $75,000. Every dime I had saved for my old age, gone. Can we get it back?"
Some of it.
"The house will sell for enough to cover what they owe on the mortgages. The rest, well, that depends on whether they have any assets left." They didn't. The police had seized their cars, which were being repossessed anyway. Their bank accounts were empty. Even their fancy clothes and jewelry were bought on credit they couldn't pay. They had nothing left to take. The children adjusted better than I expected, though it wasn't easy at first. Jake stopped talking for days, retreating into his own silence. Tommy threw tantrums at bedtime, screaming for his mommy. Emma tried to take care of everyone else while pretending she was fine. They were grieving in their own ways, mourning parents who were still alive but no longer part of their daily lives. Kids are resilient, though, and with Mrs. Patterson's help, we kept their routines as normal as possible. Emma and Jake went to school. Tommy went to kindergarten. Lucy took naps and babbled in her high chair. They asked about their parents, of course. I told them the truth in simple terms they could understand. "Mommy and Daddy made some bad choices with money," I explained. "They took money that wasn't theirs, and now they have to face the consequences." "Are they coming home?" Emma asked. "Not for a while, sweetheart. But you're safe here with me." The trial was scheduled for 3 months later, but Harold thought it would never make it to court. "They're looking at serious prison time," he explained. 5 to 10 years, maybe more with all the charges. Their lawyer is already talking about a plea deal." "What kind of deal?" "Probably guilty pleas in exchange for reduced sentences. Maybe 2 years each, plus restitution." "Will they have to pay me back?" "Eventually. But it'll take years, maybe decades. You should assume that money is gone forever." It was a hard truth to accept. The money I'd saved for my retirement, for emergencies, for the grandchildren's college funds. All of it gone, stolen by my own son. But as the weeks passed, I realized something unexpected. I was happier than I'd been in years. The house was full of laughter and noise. The kids needed me, really needed me, in a way that felt good. Mrs. Patterson became a close friend. My knee got stronger every day. And I never once missed Grant and Maribel. One evening, about 6 weeks after they'd been arrested, Emma climbed into my lap while I was reading. "Grandma, do you hate Mommy and Daddy?" It was a question I'd been dreading. How do you explain to a child that you don't hate their parents, but you also don't love them anymore? "I don't hate them, sweetheart. But I'm very disappointed in them. They hurt me, and they made bad choices that hurt you and your brothers and sister too." "Will you forgive them?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Forgiveness is complicated," I said finally. "Sometimes people do things that are so hurtful that forgiveness takes a very long time. Maybe someday I'll be able to forgive them. But right now, I'm focusing on taking care of you and your brothers and sister." She nodded like that made perfect sense. Kids understand fairness better than most adults do. The plea hearing happened on a Tuesday morning in October. Harold wanted me to be there, but I decided not to go. I didn't need to see Grant and Maribel in orange jumpsuits, handcuffed and defeated. The mental picture was enough. Harold called me afterward with the results. "They both pled guilty," he said. "Grant got 3 years in state prison. Maribel got 2 years, with the possibility of early release for good behavior. What about restitution? They have to pay back every penny they stole, plus interest. Their wages will be garnished for the rest of their lives if necessary. 3 years. My son would spend 3 years in prison for stealing from his own mother. Part of me felt sorry for him. A very small part. The rest of me felt like justice had finally been served. What about the children? I asked. Child Services wants to discuss permanent guardianship with you. Are you interested? Was I interested in raising 4 children at the age of 64? 3 months ago, I would have said it was impossible. I was too old, too tired, too set in my ways.
Now?
Looking around at the homework scattered on my kitchen table, listening to Lucy babbling in her high chair while Jake practiced violin in the living room, I couldn't imagine my life any other way. Yes, I said. I'm very interested. The paperwork took weeks, but eventually it was official. Emma, Jake, Tommy, and Lucy were legally mine. Their last name was still Winters, but I was their guardian in every way that mattered. Mrs. Patterson decided to stay on as a live-in helper. At first, I worried about having someone else in my space all the time, but she fit into our little family like she'd always been there. She drove the kids to activities, helped with homework, and gave me someone to talk to in the evenings after the children were in bed. Do you ever regret it? She asked me one night as we cleaned up after dinner. Turning in your own son? I thought about the question while I loaded the dishwasher. Did I regret it? No, I said finally. I regret that it came to that. I regret that he made choices that hurt so many people. But I don't regret protecting myself and these kids. Even knowing he's in prison? Especially knowing he's in prison. He stole from me, lied to me, and abandoned his children. Prison is exactly where he belongs. It sounded harsh when I said it out loud, but it was the truth. Christmas came and went. The kids adapted to their new life with remarkable resilience. Emma joined the school choir. Jake made the honor roll. Tommy learned to ride a bike. Lucy said her first word, Gamma, for Grandma. I bought them everything they needed and some things they just wanted. Not because I was trying to buy their love, like Maribel had accused me of doing with Grant, but because I could afford to, and because they deserved to be spoiled a little after everything they'd been through. My knee was completely healed by spring. I could walk without a limp, climb stairs without pain, and chase a toddler around the backyard. The physical therapy had worked, but more than that, having a purpose again had healed something deeper. In May, I got a letter from Grant. He'd been moved to a minimum security facility about 2 hours away. The letter was short, written in the careful handwriting I remembered from his childhood. Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm getting help here. There's a counselor who's helping me understand why I made such bad choices. I know saying I'm sorry doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. I'm sorry for stealing from you, for lying to you, for leaving you alone with the kids when you were hurt. I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I know what I did was wrong. I read the letter 3 times, then put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I never would be. Maribel's letter came a week later. Longer, more dramatic, full of excuses and self-pity. I never meant for things to go this far, she wrote. We were just so stressed about money, and it seemed like you had plenty. We thought we were borrowing, not stealing. We always planned to pay you back once Grant got promoted. You have to understand, we were desperate. The cruise was supposed to be a chance for us to reconnect and figure out how to fix our marriage. Instead, it destroyed our whole lives. The kids probably hate us now. You've turned them against us. I hope you're happy. I threw that letter in the trash without finishing it. Even from prison, Maribel couldn't take responsibility for her actions. Summer brought new challenges. The kids were out of school, which meant more time together, more activities to coordinate, more chaos in general. But it was good chaos. Happy chaos. We took day trips to the beach and the zoo. We had picnics in the park and movie nights in the living room. We planted a vegetable garden in the backyard, and the kids were amazed when actual tomatoes started growing. One evening in July, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma asked the question I'd been dreading. "Grandma, can we visit Mommy and Daddy?" The other kids looked up, waiting for my answer. Even Lucy, who was too young to understand, seemed to sense the importance of the moment. I'd known this day would come. The kids loved their parents, despite everything that had happened. It was natural for them to want to see Grant and Maribel, to try to make sense of why their family had fallen apart. "Do you want to visit them?" I asked carefully. Emma nodded. Jake shrugged. Tommy looked confused. Lucy clapped her hands because everyone was looking at her. "We can arrange that," I said finally. "But we need to talk about what visits would be like and what you can and can't expect from them." The first visit was scheduled for August. Mrs. Patterson offered to take the kids, so I wouldn't have to see Grant and Maribel, but I decided to go with them. Not because I wanted to see my son and daughter-in-law, but because the children might need me. The prison was nothing like what I'd imagined. Clean, bright, more like a school than a dungeon. Grant and Maribel were brought into a visiting room with tables and chairs, like a cafeteria. They looked older, thinner. Grant's hair was shorter than I'd ever seen it. Maribel wore no makeup, which made her look younger but also tired. The kids ran to them, and for a moment it was just a normal family reunion. Hugs and kisses and excited chatter about school and friends and the garden we'd planted. I sat at a nearby table, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough away to give them privacy. After about an hour, Emma came over to me. "Grandma, Mommy wants to talk to you." I looked over at Maribel, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Not the anger I expected, but something sadder. More resigned. I walked over to their table. Grant looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years.
"Shame."
"Mom," he said quietly, "thank you for taking care of them." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It was just acknowledgement of what I'd done for his children when he couldn't. "They're good kids," I said simply.
"They are."
"You did a good job raising me, even though I forgot that for a while." Maribel didn't say anything, but she nodded at me. The closest thing to an apology I was likely to get from her. We left after 2 hours. The kids were quiet on the drive home, processing what they'd seen. Their parents in prison uniforms, sitting in a room with guards and other criminals, unable to come home with them. "Are you okay?" I asked Emma, who was sitting in the front seat next to me. "I think so," she said. They seemed smaller. That was exactly right. Grant and Maribel had seemed smaller, less important, less powerful. Prison had stripped away their arrogance and left them looking like what they really were, two people who had made terrible choices and were paying the consequences. We visited twice more that summer. Each time was a little easier, a little less emotional. The kids began to understand that their parents were in prison because they'd broken the law. They weren't coming home anytime soon, and that was okay because they had a good home with me. By September, when school started again, our little family had settled into its new normal. Emma was in 4th grade now, Jake in 6th. Tommy started 1st grade with his backpack covered in superhero patches. Lucy began walking and getting into everything. I was busier than I'd been in years, but I'd never felt more useful. Every day brought new challenges: homework help, scraped knees, friendship drama, bedtime stories. Every day also brought new joys, inside jokes, spontaneous hugs, the simple pleasure of sitting around the dinner table with people who needed me. My friends were amazed at how I'd transformed from a lonely widow recovering from surgery to a full-time guardian of 4 children. "Aren't you exhausted?" my neighbor Mrs. Chen asked as she watched me chase Lucy around the backyard while supervising Jake's bike riding and Emma's sidewalk chalk art. Sometimes, I admitted, but it's a good kind of tired. Don't you miss your quiet life? I thought about my quiet life. Getting up alone, eating breakfast alone, spending entire days without talking to anyone, going to bed early because there was nothing else to do. No, I said. I don't miss it at all. The second Christmas was even better than the first. The kids had friends now, activities they loved, a sense of belonging that had been missing when their parents were around. We had traditions, decorating cookies on Christmas Eve, opening one present before bed, making pancakes Christmas morning. Grant sent a card with a drawing he'd made in art therapy. It showed stick figures of all of us around a Christmas tree, with I love you written in crayon. I put it on the refrigerator next to the kids' school pictures. Maribel sent nothing. In February, Harold called with news about the restitution. They're both working in prison, he explained. Grant in the library, Maribel in the kitchen. Their wages are being garnished, and the money is being put into an account for you. How much? About $50 a month total. At this rate, it'll take about 30 years to pay you back. 30 years. I'd be 94 if I lived that long. The kids would be adults with families of their own. That's fine, I said. I'm not holding my breath. The truth was, I didn't need the money anymore. My pension was enough to support our household, especially with Mrs. Patterson helping with expenses. I had everything I needed right here. Spring brought Little League for Jake, dance classes for Emma, and swimming lessons for Tommy. Lucy learned to say no and used her new word constantly. The house was loud and messy and full of life. One evening, as I was helping Emma with her math homework, she looked up at me with serious eyes. Grandma, are you going to get old and die before we grow up? It was such a direct question, so practical and fearless, that I almost laughed. I hope not, sweetheart. I plan to stick around for a very long time. Good, she said, turning back to her fractions. Because we need you. We need you. For simple words that meant more to me than any thank you or apology ever could. As summer approached again, marking almost a year since that terrible week when everything changed, I realized something profound. Grant and Maribel had tried to use me, steal from me, abandon me when I was vulnerable. They'd thought I was weak, disposable, someone they could take advantage of without consequences. They'd been wrong about everything. I wasn't weak. I was strong enough to raise 4 children at 65. I wasn't disposable. I was necessary, vital, the center of a family that needed me every single day. And there had been consequences for their actions, consequences that would follow them for the rest of their lives. But the most satisfying part wasn't their punishment. It was my reward. For beautiful children who called me Grandma. A house full of laughter and love. A purpose that got me up every morning with energy and enthusiasm. They tried to destroy me, and instead, they'd given me the best years of my life. On the anniversary of that awful day, the day they'd left me alone and hurting to go on their stolen cruise, I made a special dinner. Nothing fancy, just the kids' favorite foods. Mac and cheese for Tommy, chicken nuggets for Lucy, pizza for Jake, and tacos for Emma. As we sat around the table, talking about our day, I looked at each of their faces. Emma, growing up so fast, already showing signs of the strong woman she'd become. Jake, quiet and thoughtful, but with a smile that could light up a room. Tommy, all energy and mischief, keeping us all on our toes. Lucy, just learning to talk, babbling happily in her high chair. A year ago, they'd been strangers to me in many ways. I'd been the grandmother who showed up for birthdays and holidays, but I hadn't really known them. Now I knew everything. Emma's fear of thunderstorms. Jake's talent for fixing things. Tommy's obsession with dinosaurs. Lucy's preference for bedtime stories over songs. Grandma, Emma said, interrupting my thoughts. You look happy. I am happy, sweetheart. Very happy. Even though Mommy and Daddy did bad things? Especially because of what happened, I said and realized I meant it completely. Sometimes bad things lead to good things. Sometimes people who try to hurt us end up giving us exactly what we need. After dinner, as the kids played in the living room and Mrs. Patterson cleaned the kitchen, I stepped out onto the back porch. The garden was thriving. Tomatoes hung heavy on the vine, and the flowers we'd planted were blooming in bright colors. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Grant. They gave me a phone privilege. I just wanted to say, happy anniversary. Not of what I did wrong, but of what you did right. Thank you for saving my kids when I couldn't. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll be proud of the man I'm trying to become." I read the message twice, then deleted it. I wasn't ready for Grant's transformation story. Maybe someday, but not today. Today was about celebrating what I'd built from the wreckage of what they'd destroyed. Inside, Lucy was trying to stack blocks while her brothers and sister helped by knocking them down, making her giggle. Mrs. Patterson was making tomorrow's lunch. The dishwasher was running, and someone's backpack was still sitting by the front door where it had been dropped after school. It was messy and loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. I walked back inside and scooped Lucy up in my arms. She squealed with delight and patted my cheek with her tiny hand. "Gamma," she said clearly. "That's right, baby girl. I'm your grandma." And I always would be. 3 years later, when Grant was released from prison, he asked if he could visit the children. I thought about it for a long time before saying yes, but only under strict conditions. Supervised visits only.
No overnights.
No promises he couldn't keep. The kids were older now, more aware of what had happened and why. They were curious about their father, but not desperate for his attention. They had a stable, loving home with me, and they knew it. Grant looked different when he walked into my living room for that first visit. Older, quieter, more careful with his words. Prison had changed him in ways I could see, and probably ways I couldn't. "Mom," he said when he saw me, "you look good. Happy. I am happy. The kids look good too. You've done an amazing job with them." I didn't say thank you, because taking care of them hadn't been a favor to him. It had been a privilege for me. We sat in awkward silence while the children showed him their report cards, their art projects, the vegetables they'd grown in the garden. He listened carefully, asked good questions, and didn't try to be the fun parent who swooped in with gifts and promises. When it was time for him to leave, Emma hugged him goodbye. "Will you come back next week?" she asked. "If Grandma says it's okay," Grant replied, looking at me. "We'll see," I said. Not a promise, but not a no either. After he left, Tommy asked the question I'd been expecting. "Is Daddy going to live here again?"
No, sweetheart.
"This is our home. Daddy will visit sometimes, but he lives somewhere else now." "Good," Tommy said matter-of-factly. "I like it just us." Out of the mouths of babes. Grant continued his visits, once a month at first, then every other week. He got a job at a construction company, lived in a small apartment across town, and slowly began to rebuild his life. But he was no longer the center of his children's world, and he seemed to understand that. Maribel was released 6 months later, but she moved to another state to live with her sister. She sent birthday cards to the kids sometimes, but never asked to visit. Maybe she was too ashamed, or maybe she just didn't care enough. Either way, it was fine with me. The kids thrived. Emma made honor roll and joined the debate team. Jake discovered a talent for photography. Tommy became obsessed with soccer. Lucy started preschool and came home every day with stories about her friends. Mrs. Patterson and I became like sisters, 2 women who'd found each other later in life and created something beautiful together. We shared the work of raising 4 children, the joy of watching them grow, and the satisfaction of knowing we'd saved them from a life of instability and neglect. On quiet evenings, after homework was done and children were bathed and tucked into bed, We'd sit on the porch with cups of tea and talk about our days. Sometimes we talked about the past, but mostly we talked about the future. Emma's dreams of becoming a lawyer, Jake's interest in engineering, Tommy's plans to play professional soccer, Lucy's determination to be a dinosaur when she grew up. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't fought back? Mrs. Patterson asked me one night. I thought about it. What if I'd just suffered in silence that week? What if I'd taken care of the children without calling the police, without standing up for myself, without demanding justice? I'd be dead, I said simply. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. I'd have been a ghost in my own life. And the children? They'd have grown up thinking it was normal to use people, to take what you want without earning it, to abandon family when things get hard. They'd have become their parents. Instead, they were becoming themselves. Strong, kind, responsible people who knew the difference between right and wrong because they'd seen both up close. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you, that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today. But before you go, I need you to do me a favor. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. And make sure you're subscribed to Her Real Stories because we're not done telling the truth about what it means to fight for your own life. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? What did you choose and how did it turn out? Remember, family, your worth isn't determined by how useful you are to other people. You matter just because you exist. And if someone tries to tell you otherwise, you have every right to prove them wrong. Until next time, this is Her Real Stories, reminding you that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to disappear.